Do the New York Jets already have their 2025 quarterback under contract? Aaron Rodgers hints at the possibility or the likelihood of a return for 2025. We'll get into that and more, the ramifications for GM search, head coach search, and all that good stuff. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio, jetnation.com. Be sure to log into jetnation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Joined today by my good friends Dylan Terman, Chris Schubert. How are we doing today, Dylan?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy to see a 3-box here. It's been far too long, and I know the losses keep stacking up, so it's hard to, find some positivity in the week. But I don't know, man. Sitting here talking with you guys, I get a little positive, not necessarily about the team or anything, but just like, you get the down spell after the Sunday blowout. Monday you don't even want to go on socials. Tuesday it's like now we're fighting with each other, and now we're here and we can like, all right, let's get some positivity at least. Maybe not in the content, but just talking to each other. It's going to be good.
Yep. Dano says 10-7. Chris, your thoughts on 10-7?
10-7, not going to happen. Gentlemen, it has been a while since we have been together. I am still recovering. I was in attendance. I was in the building. My father flew out from the East Coast to enjoy the game in person there at State Farm Stadium, because for those of you who don't know, I live in Arizona, and boy, was it a complete waste of my entire Sunday afternoon to travel all the way out there and not even see a team that had a chance to win the football game. I don't know if you can see it because of the glare, but the Reese's Senior Bowl hat has been broken out. It is going to stay on for the remainder of the season as we do these shows, because that's what time it is for this football team. Let's start talking about players for next year, because this year, toast.
Absolutely. It's, we said a couple weeks ago it was draft time. We've touched on some prospects. I have a mid-level tight end that I want to talk about tonight when we get into the prospects, because let's face it, and that is a topic I actually jotted down on the board that we should talk about tonight. We may not get to it, but the tight ends on this team suck. Like, a lot of things about this team are bad, but love the Ruckert story. But is this dude going to get a catch for 10 yards, double digits at some point? We'll get into that later. But the big story of the last couple of days, I did a show yesterday, but I didn't really talk about it because I wanted to save it for tonight. Aaron Rodgers basically is coming back next year. Or it appears he is willing and happy to. One report early in the day, I think it was Yahoo. Yeah, it was Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports, who is on the ball. Think back, I always credit him because he was the only person, or the first person I saw, who had all of the details of the Aaron Rodgers trade negotiations when nobody else had it, and they all turned out to be right. So Charles isn't a guy who breaks a ton of stuff, but that gave him a ton of credibility in my mind. So Charles Robinson reported yesterday that when the Davante Adams to the Jets trade was in the works, that Davante Adams said, "Don't come get me unless Aaron Rodgers is going to be there next year as well." And the Jets came and got him. Aaron Rodgers was then asked if he's going to come back next year, and he said something. He didn't say yeah, absolutely, but he said yeah, probably, something like that. So Rodgers, for the first time, didn't shoot down the possibility, and we know now that Adams wasn't coming unless he was going to be here. This has huge ramifications. As I said to you guys right before we kicked off, my first thought was, does this mean you can't go quarterback in round one? No matter who the GM is. We saw the report in The Athletic that Rodgers is making the calls. I mean, I think we saw from all the free agent acquisitions last year that like 5 of them were good friends of Aaron Rodgers. He's got some pull in the organization. Now, come draft time, if they have a quarterback on the board, do they have to defer to Rodgers, who's saying, get me a big-time receiver, get me another blocker, get me a T-Mac from Arizona, Tedroy McMillan, who's my favorite receiver in the class. So how does it impact the draft? How does it impact your GM and head coach search? Are you telling an incoming GM, you've got pick 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it is, you don't get to use that on a quarterback? We need some more support for Aaron in the first round. How does a GM feel about that? So this can have a lot of impact on a lot of stuff. What are your guys' thoughts? And by the way, Aaron Rodgers will be 41. He's not going to get better than he is this year. He already can't move. He's been okay. He hasn't been a terrible quarterback, but he certainly hasn't been a guy that's so good that you let him run your organization. So, Dylan, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on a Rodgers return, and how do you think this impacts the GM search? Is a general manager going to be turned off by the fact that he might be told you're not using your first-round pick on a quarterback?
So I was really hoping you'd turn this one to Chris first, because I think that he would say
We can defer.
There's-
Let's go.
I want to
Chris, and
defer
you
to
tell us
I
if
want
he
to
says
defer
what
to
you
Chris
thought he was
because I
gonna
think
say.
only because I think he's going to make a really good point that I don't want to step all over.
Listen, you won the coin toss. You could have done whatever you want with it. I'll start. If the New York Jets are going to be okay and welcome with open arms Aaron Rodgers back for the 2025 season, then we can already on this podcast start talking about Arch Manning in the 2026 draft. That's how I personally feel about it. There's nothing about what has occurred this season that should give you any confidence that this team's all of a sudden going to find it in 2025. Is the idea, have we all been watching this football team for what has been 3 months now? And is the thing that we feel holding this team back just a head coach and a new GM? Is that what we feel is holding this team back from reaching its potential? Or is what's holding this team back that they don't have a culture? Is what's holding this team back that they have a 40, about to be 41, and next year will be a 42-year-old quarterback who will then be 5 years removed from his last good season in the NFL? That's what we're watching. We're watching a team that can't tackle. I don't need a coach to teach Sauce Gardner how to tackle. I need Sauce Gardner to learn how to tackle. I need a general manager who understands that you can't move on from John Franklin Myers and allow Bryce Huff to walk in free agency, and then the plan B to go get Hassan Reddick, and then Hassan Reddick sits out for a month of the season. This team has all the talent in the world. Nobody is going to argue the talent, the pure talent level, Madden ratings of the players on this team. As a team, they stink. And if what you are going to sell to your fan base is, don't worry about it, we're going to run it back, new coach, we got the coach wrong, we got the GM wrong, and then you think you're going to get a high-quality GM and coach to sign up for this BS, to sign up for this product, I'm sorry, you're selling a vision that nobody believes in anymore. Nobody. There is not a single Jets fan out there right now that believes truly, deep down in the bottom of their heart, that Aaron Rodgers is going to lead this team to the playoffs in 2025. Nobody believes it. And if they do, then they've been watching these games blindfolded. They have not been watching the game. He is cooked. And maybe I'll be wrong about this. He is done. He is not a quarterback that can be the leader and be the figurehead of a team that can lead them to the playoffs. He is not that person. We talk about this when we talk about scouting, quarterbacks being trucks and trailers. And for the longest time, we have referred to Aaron Rodgers as a truck. And I hate to break the bad news to everybody if I'm the one that's telling this to you, but Aaron Rodgers is now a trailer. Aaron Rodgers is not a truck anymore. And this team can't just run it back next year. So if this is the path that they choose to go, they will get a low-quality GM, they will get a low-quality yes-man head coach, and we will be doing this exact same thing on November 14th of 2025.
Yeah, that's pretty well said. I wrote the number 2.5 on my index card while you're talking, because maybe 2.75, because we're basically all out on Rodgers dictating anything in 2025. Obviously, what we want as a podcast for this team and what the team is going to do for the team are going to be completely different things. But I don't think there's anybody that's sitting up here that says Rodgers should dictate anything. The only thing that I will say, and that's why I said 0.75, is maybe there is a GM, and I'm not saying that it would be me, because if I was the GM, I would strip it all down and rebuild. I don't care what the season ticket holders like. I don't go to the game, so it's like sitting through that is not, I just turn my TV off. But I just Rodgers can't dictate anything, no, but a GM might believe in it. Like a GM might. Maybe they're crazy, but they might believe in a 1 year, this is the best team the Jets have ever had on paper. So maybe who was it, Gruden that took over Tony Dungy's team and won in the first year?
Mm-hmm.
He won the Super Bowl. Do that as a GM, right? I'm not saying that we believe that would happen, but maybe there is a whack job general manager out there who believes in that vision. And that is the only reason that Rodgers, I believe, would. That's not the only reason. Rodgers saying he wants to be back gives him plenty of, leg room in the organization to be back. But I feel like that should be the only reason Rodgers should be back, is if the general manager, or if they want to go the football ops guy, if they hire that guy and he decides he wants Rodgers, sure. If they decide they don't want Rodgers, dude, I have no room to argue. I was the biggest Rodgers fan. I was the biggest Saleh fan too. But after week 5, I sat here and said, nobody is safe. This team, like Chris said, it's great on paper, but that really doesn't mean shit when your chemistry is bad. Everybody's playing for their individual selves. I don't think there's one person that's playing for the man next to them, and I think that's really upsetting. Sauce Gardner's pointing fingers when he lets up catches. And then he's, fighting with Rich Cimini on Twitter, and it's not about Sauce specifically, but like just little things like that, the tweaks or the holes in the boat that are coming this season, that's all. Everybody's to blame. Everybody's got to go. Rodgers can't dictate anything. the easiest thing for the Johnsons to do would be to hire a team to find the new guy, and then they can wipe their hands of it too. But again, what we want as a podcast and what the Jets are going to do is completely different. So,
but we have to remember that's how they got Idzik. Was bringing in someone else to find the guy.
Yeah,
of course.
Glenn, can you put up Dano's most recent comment?
Sure.
Because I think this is the disconnect. And Dano, this is not a personal shot at you. You just are bringing up something. And this is where I differ with almost everybody in the fan base. This team's not good enough to win in 2025. It's over. This window's closed. It's shut. It's done. The Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Elijah Vera Tucker, this era of Jets football where we were supposed to just be a perennial playoff team, guys, it's done. It's cooked. They made the bet 2 years ago when they went all in for Aaron Rodgers. Instead of going for, and not to say it would have been any better, but instead of going for a Derek Carr where you had a longer window, you pushed all your chips in the middle for the last 2 seasons. It was a colossal failure. It's done. It's over with. If you want to turn this around in an expedited fashion, then the thing you have to do is you have to tear it completely down. Garrett has to go. AVT has to go. Sauce has to go. This Breece, everybody has to go, and you have to start from zero. You have to start from scratch. This team is not going to be a playoff team in 2025. You're kidding yourself. This team's not going to be a playoff team in 2026. It's not happening because let's say they run it back next year. Let's say they keep it in-house and they just run it back with what they have. When they don't make the playoffs with a 41, going to be 42-year-old quarterback, you think Garrett Wilson's going to sign a long-term contract extension here? You think Sauce Gardner is going to sign a long-term contract extension here? You think that's what's going to happen? It's not. And so in order for us to have an honest conversation about the state of the New York Jets, we have to look at this situation and understand it is over. It's done. The window is closed.
Yeah, well, the only I hate to even say pushback because I'm so out on this team that I'm like, whatever, they're never going to be good because they just never are. But I would like if I'm a GM, if I'm an owner, if I'm whatever, if I'm in this situation looking at this roster, I'm wanting to there are pieces I'm going to want to keep. Like I don't see the benefit in getting rid of guys who are in their early 20s. It's not as if these guys are like 29, 30, 31 years old. Like Garrett saw all these guys are very talented and they're what you're hoping to get when you start picking guys. Like when you enter the draft, you're like, hopefully we can get a good young corner. Hopefully we get a good number one receiver. Like they have that. I get that it's not going to matter because they're going to suck anyway. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm an owner, I'm going to be like, look, I want to keep some of these pieces. But that brings us to the next portion, guys. The thing I wanted to talk about, we discussed it very briefly the other day. If Rodgers comes back, again, he likely comes back. You bring a new GM in, whether it's been dictated to him or not that Rodgers is going to be his quarterback is almost irrelevant. I think we just got your answer, Chris. But does a new GM mean a fire sale? I jotted down the names. Here are the names of the players currently on the roster that I believe could fetch you significant draft capital. Even if we're talking, day 3 picks, just add draft picks, right? We all know, look, the Jets were the only team that wanted Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago. No, he's not even on the table as a trade guy. So because I've seen people say that, trade Rodgers. Like nobody wants him. Nobody wanted him when they thought he might still be good. They certainly don't want him now. But you've got Breece, you've got Garrett, you've got Quinnen, you've got Sauce, you've got Michael Carter. I know he just signed, but it wasn't a very long deal. You could probably move him without a huge hit. You've got Quincy, you've got Joe Tippmann. Now, I know he just got here, but if you don't like Olu for some reason, he's going to have value. AVT's value because of the injuries will be something else. Will McDonald having a monster year. If you find a team that maybe loved Malachi Corley and he plays well over the season's final first 4 or 5 weeks, is he a guy that can get you a pick? Who on this roster do you look at and say, that's a guy we can move? I think we can get X amount for him, and I'm willing to move on from that guy. Now, Chris, you just said you'd move everybody.
Well,
so
let me make something clear, because Wild Wave said, I agree we need a reset, but not that kind of reset, like a soft reset. Where? Where are you soft resetting? Where's it coming from? Are you soft resetting at quarterback? Once you do that, once you soft reset at quarterback, it's over. The house of cards comes tumbling down. And so to me, there are 2 outcomes. There are 2 of this offseason. You're either going to run it back entirely, except for the people that throw a fit and want out. And by the way, if Garrett Wilson throws a fit and wants out, if Breece Hall throws a fit and wants out, if AVT throws a fit and wants out, the one thing you are not going to hear from this microphone is complaints on those guys. I am not going to give those guys any slack for doing that. So
No,
that's option one.
I would almost be mad if they don't.
Right. So option one is run it back, or option two is all of it blows up. That's it. Those are the two choices. Because you have to look at it from the perspective of this. A new GM that comes in here, you're either going to get a yes man who is just going to do whatever keeps Aaron Rodgers happy for the bridge year that Rodgers is here, or you're going to bring in a GM that goes, listen, none of this is my mess, and I'm coming in here, and you have to give me full autonomy to do everything that I need to do to this roster. You're not going to get... If you want Wild Wave, if you want a soft reset, then the best thing you can hope for is for Woody Johnson to go be an ambassador somewhere and for Christopher Johnson to keep the guy that he hired in Joe Douglas. You only get a soft reset if Joe's here. That's the only way you get a soft reset. Any other new GM is either going to keep the status quo or they're going to completely blow it up. And I think I've made it very clear which side of the fence that I'm on, because I don't want to do this. I don't want to do a podcast in November of 2025 and we go, oh, shucks. The 2025 New York Jets tried it with Aaron Rodgers and it didn't work. Why should we expect at 42 it's going to be different than it was at 41? So instead of being able to fix this and be competitive in 2026, by doing what you're doing, you're then going to be competitive in 2028, 2029. I'm sorry. If you bring in a new GM, that GM needs carte blanche to do whatever they feel is in the best long-term health of the organization. Because who cares? The fan base isn't going to care. You've torpedoed us for 2 years. The last 2 years of Aaron Rodgers, we've been torpedoed. If you go out there and you go 3-14 next year, or okay, who cares? We're going to watch a team that's going to win probably 5 games this year at most. So 3-14 is nothing new to me. 3-14 is not new. If I know that there's a new GM with a new vision, we're good. I'll see it out because the pains it just grows.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't count. Nine players is the total number of players, and that's not like saying that they're the best 9 players on this team, but these are the 9 players that I could see on this team next year, given almost any of the circumstances. I wrote down there's 5 different paths for this team. We can get into that later, but based on the fire sale, I see 9 players that I wouldn't move if I was a GM trying to at least look presentable in my first year. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, Olu Fashanu, Will McDonald, Malachi Corley, Joe Tippmann, Morgan Moses, and Tyrod Taylor. Pretty much everybody else is up for grabs. And the only reason I put the last 2 on there because you need veterans that you need a right tackle and you need a quarterback if you're not going to have Rodgers. Like you need somebody. You're not going to go in there with a rookie and Jordan Travis off a redshirt broken leg year. So those are the 9 to me. Everybody else I feel like would be up for grabs. I don't see a reason to argue against moving any of these guys, but I just feel like those are your core guys. Breece, you could probably get more back for him in a trade this offseason than you would if you let him walk as a comp pick. But I think it's probably negligible at that point based on the production Breece can give you, especially if you don't have a quarterback. So I would keep Breece for that reason. JJ is probably one of the better first-round draft picks. Obviously Garrett and Sauce too, but Sauce I would trade because you're probably getting the value of a 1. You're probably getting a 1 with a pick swap or maybe a high 2+. So maybe, that's enticing to trade. Sauce, Olu you're keeping because you need a left tackle. You could even undergo an entire scheme change and probably still keep Olu. Will McDonald, another good first-round pick. Obviously, scheme comes into play, but I think Will McDonald will be on this team. Malachi Corley, again, I think that's scheme if the offensive coordinator wants a gadget guy, which most offensive coordinators have a gadget guy that run an offense in 2024 that looks somewhat NFL-like. And then Joe Tippmann, you got to keep a center. You got to keep at least some continuity on this O-line, which has been a good point. And you mentioned the tight ends earlier. Quarterback, wide receiver, O-line, probably the only place where they've upgraded, and now wide receiver, you can't even say that. So coming into the season, that was really the only 2 where you upgraded and everything else stayed the same or got worse. So
can I ask you guys a question?
Go right ahead.
It's rhetorical for the 2 of you. It's not rhetorical for everybody in the listening audience. Why are we so eager to keep this core around? They're all talented. I'm not disagreeing with you, but where's it gotten us? Right? Like Garrett Wilson's great. I was told all he needed was a quarterback. Elijah Vera Tucker's great. All I was told was he needed a quarterback. This pass rush, this defense, all I was told was they needed a quarterback to run their offense. Now, Aaron Rodgers hasn't been good. Let me make that very clear. But they went out and got the thing that they were missing. And that talent, that core, they're worse than they were with Zach Wilson. And I know we're not allowed to say his name on the show anymore, but they're worse. They're a worse team. Why is that a core you want to build around? Why is that? Why does that give? If I was a new GM, why is that the group that I would want to? I would rather trade those guys, get the picks, and start my own core. Because again, 2025 is not happening. It's not happening. They're not making the playoffs next year. They're done. It's over. This window is closed. Do what you can to make sure that the window doesn't stay closed for another 5 to 7 years, and instead it's maybe closed for 2 or 3.
If I'm a GM, and like I said earlier, I'm keeping some of those guys around because of their youth. They will be around when I'm hoping to be good again. I won't be good again because I work for the Jets, but if I'm envisioning in my mind, when will we be competitive? Okay, well, Sauce, Garrett, those at that point, those guys will be 26, 27. They'll still have 4, 5, 6 years of very good football left in them.
Okay. I have a question.
I don't think you have to get rid of everybody because things aren't working out.
Yeah. Sometimes
you can have players now who can contribute a couple of years from now. But the thing is, do these guys want to Garrett Wilson, I said this last year, but I didn't think it would be an issue. I thought, and again, needing a quarterback, we thought we were getting a quarterback who wins you football games when he has the ball with the game on the line. We don't. We have a guy who throws interceptions with the game on the line, and now the season's over. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know the kicker who went 35 for 38 last year was going to be literally the worst kicker in the NFL this year. Like, those are the two biggest issues, as far as I'm concerned, why this team isn't sitting at, 6-7 wins right now. But
if they cut bait with Rodgers and they brought in a new GM and a new head coach, and they were able to not just hire somebody to placate Rodgers or to try to win now in this window, if they were able to actually conduct a decent, solid GM and head coach search, when do you think they would be competitive again?
I don't. I'm just saying
there's a realistic path for them to be a competitive by the middle of 2026.
So the middle of 2026.
If you had a new GM and a new head coach, yeah, regardless of who the quarterback is.
So
how long did it take Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell?
Fair. I just the answer tells me a lot. At that point, Sauce and Wilson will be 26.
Yeah.
Vera Tucker will be 27. Brees will be 25. Johnson will be 27. Q will be almost 30. DJ Reed will be 30.
Well, he'll be gone. DJ Reed's gone this offseason.
Will McDonald will be 27.
Oh, the faces will all be new.
So, right. So,
but if you're a new GM, realistically, like, how many new faces are you bringing into your, let's just say, 90-man roster? 45? You can't bring in 45 new players.
You
can
right.
bring in 25.
I get what you're saying. I'm just defeated, guys. Like, I just don't see it.
I get it, but
I just don't see it.
I'm not saying like you're wrong. I think it's unrealistic for every single person to go by 2025. By like I said, if they're competitive in the middle of 2026, I would assume that 60% of the roster has changed based on age, performance, whatever, contracts.
If we get to 2026 and that core hasn't played a meaningful playoff game, there's no experience. There's nothing to draw off of. They won't have the scar tissue of like when you build a team, right? The idea is a GM head coach takeover, a team's in a barren wasteland. Let's use the Lions. They're perfect example. Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, they take over in Detroit, right? And they are starting from the bottom. And they get a veteran quarterback in Jared Goff, and they're able to hit on some draft picks, right? Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta. They're able to hit across Aiden Hutchinson. They just hit on all these picks, right? They're on, what year is this of that project? 4? 5?
4 or 5, yeah. Middle of 5.
They only had their first.
Middle of 4.
The middle of 4. They only had their first playoff loss. They blew the NFC Championship game. Blew it. Team was going to walk to the Super Bowl, and they blew it. They now have experience to draw off of. That was in year 3. They're now entering year 4.
What was his record in year 2?
Okay, agreed. You're telling me that Sauce, Garrett, all these guys aren't going to have that meaningful experience until year 6, year 7, year 8?
No, that's what I'm saying. If you have a new GM, regardless of who your quarterback is, depending on how you play in 2025, by the beginning or middle of 2026, you would know if this team is going to be competitive or not. I'm just saying I'm not going to buy a 4-year rebuild from any regime.
And I think that's
they went
the
from
only way
3-13-1 to 9-8, and they were the Detroit Lions. We're the New York Jets. I get it. Like, we're the AFC equivalent. Don't get me wrong, but like,
they had a quarterback. They had a coach that I believe
they traded for.
I would argue they had a better offensive coordinator too.
That you don't need to.
We
argue
don't have
about
any
that.
of those things. I'm saying we don't know who those guys are. If we went and just got I'm not saying it's as easy as just hiring a Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, but I'm pretty sure those weren't the guys on day one that were like, oh my God, they hit it out of the park. That kneecap speech didn't inspire.
No, everyone was laughing at Dan
Nick
Campbell.
Sirianni got laughed at.
I was going to say,
too.
it's better than the rock, paper, scissors Nick Sirianni speech.
Of course, but like, look at those two coaches. They're both successful to a degree. Like, I would take that hand every day over what we have.
But this goes back to the most important conversation. It's what we started the show with.
Are they going to do it? No.
No, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback of this team in 2025. So none of what we're talking about can even possibly be on the radar until 2026. That's the earliest.
That's not true. What if they did draft a quarterback in round 1 and Aaron Rodgers got hurt? Now you catapult your round 1 quarterback, whether he deserves it or not, and then all of a sudden he's playing well. You never know. Like, we just never know. Like, I'm not saying that I have all this eternal hope for the team, but like, I feel like every door that we've opened, no matter what, you can just close it with, we have no hope. And I don't want to do that.
No, I totally get it, Dylan. I mean, I'm totally on board with you. But if Rodgers comes back next year, this is my personal take on it. I would very much be happy to be wrong here. If Rodgers decides to come back and they welcome him back with open arms, you talk about drafting a quarterback and feeling good about the future, right? If they take a quarterback because they'll be drafting high, they can maybe get Cam Ward, right? Maybe they get Shedeur Sanders, right? Maybe they're able to get one of those guys. That would give you hope, right? The issue I have with it is I then need to believe in who they hire at head coach. And if Rodgers is still here, I don't think that's going to be the case.
Dude, what if they kept Joe Douglas and they got Mike Vrabel? How would you feel? And they kept Aaron Rodgers. That's a possibility, dude.
I don't think Mike Vrabel gets them out of this
team. Okay, maybe not. But like, that's inspiring. That's not inspiring at all. I've been saying that Vrabel wasn't going to come here because I didn't think Woody was going to hire him because he wanted roster control. Maybe they do. Maybe they want somebody who's going to take the roster control. I don't know. But you have 5 paths. You have Joe Douglas, Jeff Ulbrich, Aaron Rodgers. Nobody wants that next year. That's going down looking. In a baseball analogy, that's going down looking. You have Joe Douglas, a new head coach, and Aaron Rodgers. That could be enticing if you also couple it with other things like you're building for your future. That GM's going to get, that head coach is probably going to get at least 3 years on this team. Like, he's not going to get fired after 2 years if you give him Aaron for 1 and then a rookie or a young quarterback for the second. And then you have Joe Douglas, new GM, new quarterback. That could be enticing. I don't think that's the path they should go, but I think that could be enticing. Then you have new GM, new head coach, Aaron Rodgers. That could be pretty enticing. Again, they would have to see that vision. I can see it, but not selling it, not selling that vision, but I can see it. And then you have new everything. And that's
how do we feel about pairing Coach Prime and Shedeur?
No.
I'd be done.
No.
I've seen.
I know what you're doing.
I know what you're doing,
but no.
It's fine.
No.
No, I've seen people ask it, and I'm like, I feel the same way. But I thought I'd get your guys' opinion on that.
But I bring up Vrabel to say because he wants roster control. So now, does he have the roster control over Aaron? Perhaps. Somebody, I think Huawei just said it in the chat. I'm not saying. I personally think the football guy needs to have football control. The second Joe Douglas lost control to Woody Johnson, dead man walking, it doesn't matter. That's why we're on our 4th kicker in 4 weeks, because why should Joe Douglas have to do anything? It doesn't matter anyway, right? He's probably gone.
Woody thought being a GM was going to be a lot easier. He just lost.
And I don't think that's the point. If you're a GM, you stand on pride. just like the players are. They have to go out there every single week. They don't get to duck the media every single week. They don't get to speak for 8 minutes outside the facility instead of having to sit down for 20 to 30 minutes every other year that they've been on this team. No, I think it's kind of cowardice for him to just not do anything. Don't be proactive at all. Like, we should have had a kicker after Buffalo, even after Denver, if you really want to. Like, the Packers moved on from the guy that we have currently who's going to kick for us on Sunday. And now they have Brandon McManus. We could have had Brandon McManus. I don't blame Woody for that. I blame everybody. Everybody.
There's nothing that you say that you've said so far, Dylan, that I can disagree with. I get where you're coming from. I have a bias here, and the bias is I can't see this working with Rodgers in 2025. And if he's anywhere near this roster, it doesn't matter to me who the head coach is. It doesn't matter who you hire as the GM, because I think you are legitimately punting on 2025. I think rolling Aaron Rodgers out there in 2025 is a punt. It's a punt. It's not going to mean anything.
It could be. No, it 100% could be. And like I said, I don't want to sell that vision, but I think there are football minds out there that would adopt or inherit that vision. I don't think Rodgers deserves to be back. No, and he even said it this week. He said, to my standard, I have not been good. All right? We've played 10 games this season. 6.5, 5.5 of those games, Rodgers has still been the better quarterback on the field. I know he had his blunders real bad, but like 5.5 games.
I would push back on that, I think.
Purdy, Josh Allen, and a half of Sam Darnold. We made Sam Darnold look very, very normal. And then you have
you mean better Murray. On paper?
No, like better in the game that they played.
Kyler Murray was the better quarterback on Sunday.
Yeah, I got there. Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, even though I don't think Russell Wilson
Allen was better.
Good. I said Allen. Yeah, Purdy, Allen, Russell, Kyler, and then a half of Darnold.
Yeah, but you didn't bring Rodgers here to be better in only 4.5.
I get that, but I'm saying he's not the majority of the problem. The defense falling off a cliff, that's huge. We haven't said a word about that. Their DVOA went from like 5th to 32nd.
Because they fired their head coach and they moved their defensive coordinator to the head coach spot, and then he's calling plays. Because again, the organization is a mess. And yet, despite that, they're just going to run it back.
But Rodgers is the only problem.
The firing of Saleh, I mean, Saleh lost to Bo Nix at home. Like, okay, he may have been better than Ulbrich, but he still wasn't good. It's like I said to someone today, like, Mekhi Becton is fatter than me, but I ain't skinny. You know what I mean? Like, just because somebody is bad doesn't mean that the guy who's worse, that the overall situation would have been better. You know, to me, that was like the most damning loss of the Saleh era. Like, you needed a win and you lost to a rookie at a time when he, you know, Nick is playing a little better now, but you couldn't find a way to beat a rookie who threw for 70 yards at home. You know, so I get that they got worse after Saleh left, but it's not like, oh, things were so good before Saleh left.
Oh, no,
of course not.
Trust
me. No, I've seen a lot of that this week. I've seen a lot of like, Woody lost us by firing Saleh. That's what cost us the season. Like, oh, they were so great up until then. They were just lighting the league on fire.
So I think this maybe will lighten the mood a little bit. I think there's two things can be true here about that. Firing Saleh was the right decision. Firing Saleh made everything worse. Both can be true.
Yeah.
That in the moment, firing Saleh was the right decision.
Absolutely.
Also, firing Saleh when they did was an absolute disaster. Like, it just made everything worse.
Yeah, I think, and I said it at the time, and I still think Woody looked at this and said, these are the highest expectations we've had since the Rex years. I'm getting older. I'm not going to sit here while my season slips away. As, you know, again, we lost to Sam Darnold. We lost to Bo Nix. You know, I got to make a move now before the season slips away. And all that happened is the season continued slipping away. So it's not like anything changed. Again, you're giving up a few more points a game, but you were bad before. You were losing to bad quarterbacks before when you had the Hall of Famer and you were facing the rookie. So, again, that's how I feel. Like, I'm not going to start, you know, do the revisionist history thing. We're like, oh, they really shouldn't have fired Saleh. Basically, they knew what they had in Saleh. They had a guy who couldn't win. And at least in Ulbrich, it was like, well, he might not be able to win either. But you know what? Maybe he can. We know Saleh can't. So let's see what this guy does. Oh, damn it. He's worse. But either way, you weren't going to the playoffs with these coaches.
The only reason that Ulbrich even became the interim coach is because Woody liked the fact that San Francisco wanted him as their DC. So it probably would have gotten handed to somebody else.
Want him on the staff?
It probably would have been handed to somebody else if not for that. So,
Hackett. What do you mean, Nate Hackett?
Well, at the time, Hackett also got demoted, so maybe it would have been Downing, but like that's not inspiring. Nothing is inspiring about the offensive staff.
This team,
no. And that's part of the problem is that coaches don't often want former coaches on their staff because it gives an owner an option if they want to move on from them. So not that every coach does that, but sometimes I've seen weak coaches and you look at their staff and it's like, oh, funny, they don't have any former coaches on their staff while they're on the hot seat, which ends up being convenient.
No, like Joe Philbin to throw in as your interim head coach.
It's I kind of feel bad for Ulbrich because you feel like we talked that his name, he was probably going to be a hot candidate for a job after this season, and then he gets thrown into the fire and this happens.
Do we actually think that though? Like even if the defense played at that level, do we think Ulbrich would have gotten like his doors knocked down to be a head coach? I don't think so. Dan Quinn, it took so many times.
I'm not saying door knocked down, but he would have had some interviews.
He might have had one.
If they were, if they hadn't crapped the bed and if they'd been a top 10 unit again.
Like I said, maybe if they were a top 10 unit again, but still, like I don't see that many teams like saying, wow, I think what this defense was doing was totally Ulbrich's fault. And now we see like Saleh's scheme was a little bit better than Ulbrich's scheme. A little bit.
Yep. Wild Wave, thanks a lot. We appreciate that. Throwing some cash our way.
Hell yeah, dude. Thanks.
Much appreciated, Wild Wave.
Wild Wave, I appreciate it, but I don't know if we'll get through this. I really don't. You say, don't worry, we'll get through this. I'm not sure. I'm unconvinced.
See, that's the difference. And I thought, I would probably be the only one that had a little bit of hope, but I don't know, man. I have a little bit of hope. And that's part of being a fan. That's the fanatic part of me. Not this year. Not this year.
I want to let everybody in on a little secret. The group chat between the three of us it's been spicy lately. There has been this argument that we're having, and we're all friends here. We're just being civil, but behind the scenes, the group chat, we've been going back and forth for the last
shades of Wilson Fields 2021.
Yeah,
Chris wasn't around for those all the way, but
both backup quarterbacks now after all that hype about how good they were going to be.
Hey, Justin's a backup and Zach's a third string. I think I can take my victory lap now, Glenn.
Hey, their careers aren't over. I see what Sam Darnold and Geno Smith are doing. I'm not giving up on any quarterback that this team ruins.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers in 7 years going to be wheeled out and throw a touchdown pass to Mike Williams.
How crazy. Someone looked at the numbers earlier. The Jets last year on offense were like 31st with Zach Wilson, and they're 26th with Aaron Rodgers.
19th.
Yards or I don't know if it was yards or points. Basically, not a great big difference. The record is worse. The points per game are about the same. They're less than a field goal difference in points per game. And again, this is Zach Wilson playing with 14 different offensive linemen and no Devontae Adams. And Aaron Rodgers is a field. Actually, that was before the 6-point performance this week. I think I think now the Jets might be averaging fewer points per game than Zach. If not, it's less than a field goal difference. So by adding Aaron Rodgers, the Jets increased their offensive output by 2.7 points per game. Not good. Not really what we expected.
Can we? I don't know how much longer I can do this in general today because I'm just losing it. Can we talk about some Senior Bowl players real quick? Can I pivot us?
Invites coming in.
Go right ahead.
So invites have been accepted by certain players.
There's one in particular who I've been watching recently who I want to talk about.
I'm sure that you definitely want to talk about Jackson Hawes, tight end out of Georgia Tech. I'm sure that's who you want to bring to our attention.
No, I got a different tight end for you.
There are two players that I want to shout out, not because I think I don't know if the Jets will be interested because I don't know who's going to be making the pick. I have no idea what this team's going to look like. But two players that I'm excited about. RJ Harvey, running back out of UCF. And nothing? I didn't get a peep.
I was going to... No, that's the guy I wanted to talk about.
Okay, all right. And then my other guy...
Loved him last year. I was watching UCF. was watching UCF either last night or this morning. Dude is so explosive.
Yeah, he's yeah. I'm
Big
very excited
big
to see
time
him down there.
playmaker. So he's the first invite I saw that made me go, ooh, like the guy I've watched a lot of and I really like.
And then I'll tell you, Tez Johnson, wide receiver out of Oregon, is another guy that I'll quickly shout out. And so I picked 2 offensive guys.
Oregon, man.
Listen, we don't have a ton of invites. It's maybe a dozen or 2 dozen at this point. It's not a lot. Yeah. We've got some small school guys. There's a William and Mary offensive lineman that's there, but we're starting. This I get excited about. This gives me hope. This is where I get all jacked up because this is the fun part. The 3 of us love this. It's the one thing that we're able to have, and you can't take it away from us. It doesn't hurt us, right? We get to enjoy this. And so those are 2 guys I just wanted to shout out real quick.
I think we should put, and I'm sure Glenn would agree with this. I think we need to put Wild Waves super chat into the Get Chris to Mobile Fund. I think that needs to be a thing. I think that so. Everybody who's commenting,
I don't know if we can campaign like that. I don't know if that's allowed.
We can get Chris to Mobile one way or the other. I'm glad you brought up the Oregon guy because I don't know, and it's probably like some like just random person like Jets like fake account on Twitter or whatever, but said something about Dan Lanning being an NFL coach. I don't know about that personally. I know Oregon is doing well. I don't think going the college coach route would be ideal for this team necessarily, but are there any, I know we'll talk about the players, but are there any coaches in college that any of you like?
Coaches in college
for the Jets, not like just do you like them? Sorry.
It's so tough for guys to. It's so rare that college coaches come up and have a lot of success.
But the guy I wanted to shout out, and I haven't done truthfully, any research on college guys other than writing down their names in my database. Jalen Royals from Utah State. I've heard and seen a lot of good tweets about him. He seems like, just watching like cut-ups, the type of receiver I like. Maybe like more of that Elijah Moore type as opposed to like Denzel Mims type if we're using drafted wide receivers from the Jets. But does anybody have any positive things to say about Jalen Royals that would further my bias towards the small slot guys?
I have not seen him, but I will try to watch him tonight because that's once we end here, I'm watching college football.
Yeah, I think
your Jets are done for you. See, the thing is, I still got to do the post shows.
I do the post shows. I try to do 1 or 2 of these a week.
So it's tough.
They suck. I've given up. I'm still going to enjoy the draft process, even though I know they won't take the right players, or if they'll do, they'll waste them. But it's still fun to watch players and offer our best guesses. Which, by the way, I saw Daniel Jeremiah tweet the other day that Dan Henley is one of the best linebackers in the NFL right now. So
who would have thought that Dan Henley was a really good player?
Oh man!
Next, you're gonna tell me that Ivan Pace is a good player.
I was gonna say
that's the next thing you're gonna tell me. Imagine
Ivan Pace we already knew because he played a ton last year. Dan Henley didn't.
Imagine not understanding that I got to tell you, there are so many good draft takes that come from this podcast that just have aged so well. Dan Henley is the top of the list. Top of the list.
Yeah.
I found 2 college coaches that I think could make the jump.
Okay.
I'm just going to, you know what? I'll say the name and I want immediate reaction. Just give me the gut reaction to, would you want them to be the Jets head coach? Ryan Day.
No.
That's such a sour feeling.
Listen,
oh man.
Okay,
that sucks too. Like that sucks. Because like you'd really want to say yes to a guy with his resume.
Sure. No. Luke Fickell.
That's the old Cincinnati coach, right?
Now at Wisconsin. Yeah.
Now at Wisconsin.
Yeah, and they're doing some good things there.
Would you you could say Lincoln Riley? He's not coming here. That's that.
No,
this is not the job he's taking.
No.
I would take Fickell over Day.
Kyle Whittingham, does that do anything for you?
I don't even know where he coaches.
Utah.
Bring 32-year-old rookie Cam Rising with him, and you might have a deal.
I don't. I got to tell you, when we do our quarterback rankings, Cam Rising not going to be towards the top.
He's like aged out. He's already on his second NFL contract.
I can't tell you who QB1's going to be, though. I can tell you without a doubt, it's not changing who QB1 is. That's right.
Yeah.
Going to be in the college football
I guess
playoff.
It's like this, but
yeah,
you turn it this way and they're W. Well, I'm saying the U, but it's a W for Ward.
James Franklin? What does that do? I saw somebody suggest that in the
Oh,
chat. What does
get
that do
out
for
of
you?
here, dude.
James Franklin
Yeah, James
No,
Franklin. Yeah,
in New York.
I'm
yeah,
good.
that'll work. I don't want Deion
Set
Sanders
up
anywhere
an
near.
octagon at halftime so we can fight the fans.
Trying to think if
Dion, no. We went over Dion. No, I can't do it,
No.
man.
Oh,
you think
no,
the way he talks to that media,
guys,
he's
I found somebody. This guy has NFL head coaching experience. This man is a.
I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
Where am I going?
Matt Rule.
Man, Matt Rule's available,
No,
guys. Get Matt Rule in here.
no.
Get Matt Rule in here.
He was
Right the
Good
wrong
segue.
from 2019.
Hold on. I've got somebody even better. Than Matt Rule. This guy, also a former NFL head coach. What about Bill O'Brien? How do we feel about Bill O'Brien coming to the New York Jets?
Give me Ryan Day.
I'll tell you what, with some of the stuff he's done, he's better than some of the names I have heard. He's at Boston College now, right?
Yes.
He is at Boston College. Now, his quarterback, I believe, left the program. So I'm not sure it's a good week for Bill O'Brien.
A couple weeks ago.
I'm pretty sure that this is recent. Let me check to make sure that it's Boston College. But I'm pretty sure I read a story today in which their quarterback just like left and has not returned and doesn't plan on returning.
Wow.
I hope it's not one of those like color.
What is it,
confusion
McPherson?
things.
What's the quarterback's name?
I thought the same thing.
Hold on. I'm going to look it up here while we're doing this here. Stand by. Where's Boston?
No, it's not. It starts with a C. I forget. Dude can run like hell. I know that.
Boston College to start quarterback James over Castellanos.
Castellanos. Yeah.
And then an hour ago, Eagles Nest, you'll always have a special place in my heart.
Well, you left the program, dude.
Wow.
He's out.
Let me check here. Let me look him up.
No, you're 100% right. It's right on his Twitter. I have it right here.
Just left the program. Expected to enter the transfer portal. My dude in the middle of the season said, "Put me in the portal."
That's crazy. Maybe had to. You see Michigan trying to lure away that high school kid? You see this story?
I got to tell you, Michigan post Jim Harbaugh, it's not going well.
The number one quarterback commit in the country is committed to LSU. Michigan's offered him $10 million to flip.
Can you do that? It's college football. You can do whatever you want.
Golly.
I do not want Cliff Kingsbury, Rob. No, thank you. He's done
I could live with Kingsbury.
He's done a great job as the OC there in Washington, but he is only less than a season back in the NFL, and his last head coaching job was not a great performance with Arizona. I live here. I cover the teams here. He got hammered, but it was quiet. It would not go well in New York for him. It's going to take a little bit more for him to rehab his image a little bit. So I'm out on Cliff.
I'm not advocating for either of these people, but damn it, I just had Cliff Kingsbury and somebody else. Then I got distracted listening to the rest of your point.
Ben Johnson. I'd like Ben Johnson to be the head coach of the New York Jets.
Yeah, but he's going to get $1 million offers from the Jets.
I feel like everybody would love Ben Johnson, but like even he said it. He wants to be very particular about his spot. He wants to be a play caller. I'm not saying the Jets can't offer those things.
Whoever gives him $20 million a year.
I also think they have to have like a decent team already set up on paper. I don't think he's going to come in and want to do a full rebuild.
Jim Bob Cooter.
Yo, remember when Jim Bob Cooter was like the hottest name in the offseason that one year?
Jim Bob Cooter has done some really good work.
He was on our staff for a little bit.
Yes, he was. Jim Bob Cooter, I would have no objections to that. He's been doing it for a while. He's had some success doing it. Best name in the pros among the coaches. I mean, who's got a better name than Jim Bob Cooter?
Who has a better name than Jim Bob Cooter?
I mean, he should be in like Dukes of Hazzard or something. I mean, fantastic name. Sketchy pass though.
Yeah,
is that so?
Yeah. Well, one incident several years ago.
I believe that's why he stopped getting interviews.
I think so too. He apparently had a couple of drinks and showed himself in to some woman's house and
So I'll read
fell asleep in bed with her or something like that.
I will read from the Wikipedia page. He was arrested for driving under the influence in June 2006 and was suspended from the Volunteers as a result. In 2009, he was charged with aggravated burglary after climbing into a window and getting into a woman's bed. The charges were later dropped. I believe that is why Jim Bob Cooter has not been hired as a.
He was tired. Who
now,
hasn't been tired?
He is the
before?
offensive coordinator for the Colts.
Who among us hasn't walked into the home of a stranger to take a nap?
He's currently employed?
He is the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. Now,
I heard his name the other day while I was watching the game.
Because Shane
Steichen
Steichen's
Nathaniel Hackett job. Yeah.
Because Shane Steichen's running the offense. But yes, he is there.
Yeah. But
good
listen,
for him, man.
Again, just took a nap. He took a nap. He got arrested for taking a nap.
What are you guys' thoughts on Gruden? I don't know if
this is a free country. What's that?
I'm all out on Gruden. Did we go over Gruden already? Because not a name I want.
Gruden, I don't think Gruden's gone off. I think something happens to you when you're making $10 million a year to not work.
You're not feeling very nicey.
Not feeling very nice.
You're not feeling very nicey. That's how
reading running back box scores for his podcast.
His whiteboard breakdowns are really good. I enjoy those. Those
I'll
are
give
fantastic.
you for sure.
Now the podcast is great because I just love hearing that song, and I love him. He's legitimately, and I mean this in the nicest way, he's a psychopath. He is a lunatic. He's crazy.
I can't. He's one of those people that I can't tell if he's become like a caricature of himself. Like he was a little bit goofy.
No, he has,
and now he's like,
okay with
you
me.
look like a guy trying to do an impersonation of John Gruden.
Yes,
but go over the top.
He has jumped the shark on his own shtick, and that's I think this is the best version of him.
He did like the Frank Caliendo, but like went extra.
Right, he's doing the Frank Caliendo, like but he's just being himself. It's amazing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's like he's trying too hard. Like, hey, you don't have to be that John Gruden to be John Gruden.
Then you're not feeling very nicey, though. The only way you feel nicey is if you act like that all the time. Did you see him?
I met him. I really liked. He kind of took. I guess he kind of took a shot at Keyshawn. Like I was in the desert and like some NFL coaches came out to visit. And it was sort of impromptu. Like I didn't know about it till that day, so I just show up and it was like Coughlin, Cowher, John Harbaugh, and Gruden. So I'm for all of them. And Jeff Fisher, and I'm trying to think of like Jets related questions for all of them because we get to go up and I said something to him about Keyshawn, you know, because of course he sent Keyshawn home because he was such a distraction, basically kicked him off the team, and I was like, oh, you know, things really didn't work out with Keyshawn, did they? And he was like, no. It's like Keyshawn was a good player, you know. We just thought he had to go, you know, just like the Cowboys did, and the Summit. Like he listed like 3 different teams that dumped him. He's like, we just thought it was time to move on, just like this team thought it was time to move on, and this team thought it was to move on. And I was like, oh, it was a really nice way of taking a shot at the guy. Like, oh no, he was good. Just me and those 3 other teams didn't have any use for him.
That's rough.
Tom Coughlin, I thought it was funny. I wasn't going to stop him. We're just talking. I have my hat, like, you know, you're carrying your hat. We were undercover, so you don't wear your hat. And I'm just holding my booty cap in my hand. And these guys, you know, you could tell they're all tired as hell, bloodshot eyes. They've been on a plane for God knows how long to get over there. And I'm talking to Coughlin. He just, on autopilot, he just pulls my hat out of my hand and signs it. I'm like, that's my work hat. Like, I'm not, it's not a Giants cap or a football cap. Like, that's my work hat that I wear every day.
Hold on.
He just pulls it out of my hand while he's talking to me and signs it. I'm like, thanks for that.
Hold on. Where's the hat?
No idea.
No, come on. That's a great story. You don't have the prop?
No idea. Dude, I've moved more times than Lorenzo Malden. I have nothing from my past. Nothing.
That's a great story. And you just
you know, it might be somewhere in my house. It might be up in a closet somewhere.
He's trying to get us back on track, and the 3 of us are out here just completely just.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot we were doing a show.
No, it's completely fine. I do want to end. Can we end with this real quick?
Sure. Wait, I gotta give you a tight end, small school tight end.
Please,
okay, right. Yeah, tight end in the way.
You know what? No, go Dylan. Go big screen for Glenn on this one. He gets the floors his.
Let's go.
All right. So if you're looking for a small school tight end with big play potential, I would say sort of between athletic enough to play a little bit of receiver. You can put him in the slot, which really today's game, you have to be able to do that with any tight end. But check out SMU tight end RJ Maryland. First got on my radar last year while I was watching him. Turned on SMU again this year. Got a really good. They got some good players there. SMU, I didn't realize till I turned them on a few weeks ago. They got a really good record. But RJ Maryland, SMU tight end, like I said, he's a move piece. He can get open. He's really athletic, high point the ball. Probably, I think when he tested Indy, he's going to have better than average speed for the tight end position. So that's the guy to check out. That's my small school tight end for this week.
Has a torn ACL, so don't know how much we're going to see of him in the combine.
RJ Maryland?
This is what the internet tells me.
Oh, Jesus. I was watching him a couple weeks ago.
Who did they most recently play?
I don't know if I watched their most recent game. Let's check and see.
Stanford.
So it was in the Stanford game that he tore his ACL. So it's just recent, Glenn. So don't feel too
pulled
terrible.
that game up last night, and I was like, "Oh, there's the next one to watch for Maryland."
He tore for 55 and a tut.
Yeah, he tore his ACL in the 40-10 win over Stanford. So that's the RJ Maryland tape is done.
Hey,
what, they haven't played a game since then?
Value pick on day 3.
That was October 19th.
That game. Come on,
they haven't played a game in over a month.
That can't possibly be accurate.
Who? What?
No, they played Duke and Pitt. They've played 2 games since then.
Okay, that's okay. It says his recent games. That's why that makes more sense.
Well, because he had a torn ACL, so he did not participate against Duke and Pitt. Yeah, was not out there.
6 for
when did SMU get into the ACC? When did that happen?
What's that?
This year, right?
SMU's in the ACC and right now leading the ACC standings.
I don't even pay attention to who is in what conference anymore.
I don't have
enough time. Just a joke.
Yep.
I made a spreadsheet with all
it's like they're trolling us.
And then they changed it all. So no, I have not recovered. I can try, but
no. But I knew they had a really good. What is their record? I thought they were like 7-1.
SMU. They're 8-1. They're 8-1.
8-1. Okay, yeah. So they were 7-1. So
yeah, they're 14th in the country. They are, if they have a chance, if they win the ACC, they're going to be in the playoff. So
this is my spreadsheet on Power, I guess 4 and a 2-team Pac-12, but this is how it stands. And last year I had to color coordinate everything all over again, and I was very upset at the realignment. But SMU's right there. Yep. So,
boys, I'm glad we ended on a good note. We ended on a positive note.
We ended by not talking about the Jets, which
and that made us happy. That was where the happiness.
Nothing cheers me up more than not talking about the Jets.
Can we answer Huawei's question?
Sure.
What's the question? What do we got?
So it says, if Vrabel was to come here, who do you think he'll pick as his GM? I don't know if that's the order of operations, right? Shouldn't they hire the GM to find the head coach?
They should certainly.
That's the thing. They should, but we talked about this with somebody earlier. If they have their eye on a guy like a Vrabel or whoever, with the head coach, especially if you're getting a guy like Vrabel who's done it, or somebody like an Aaron Glenn who you like and want. Aaron Glenn might be the best candidate who's willing to come to the Jets because he was a Jet. But I can see a world where they're like, we already know who we want as a coach. Let's get that guy in here, and then we'll go through the candidates, and he can help us. He can give his 2 cents on who the GM should be. So I don't think it's a lock one way or the other. I think ideally you want the GM first, but I don't know that that's necessarily a requirement.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about all the scenarios where the Jets have tried to figure it out and it hasn't worked. And then we're like, well, we can't do it that way because we did it this way and it ended up getting us Mike McCagnon or whatever the case is. I think this is the time where you just have to be unconventional.
Hold on. I'm all in on hiring Vrabel now because he's apparently really tight with Luke Fickell, and Luke Fickell being the defensive coordinator would be elite.
That would see.
I'm in now. I'm in.
Look at this. It took 58 minutes and 18 seconds, and we wrapped Chris all the way up. Let's go.
I'm in. Don't blow it up. Run it back with Rodgers. Give me Mike Vrabel and Luke Fickell, baby.
Yes.
Here's why I don't think it'll be Vrabel. And I don't think I'm not saying Woody has to have a yes man, but I think Vrabel is too far the opposite end of a yes man. Like, I think he's who was it the other day? Somebody posted a story on jetnation.com that Francesa, apparently, listen, I don't listen to him anymore. I when he says something Jets related that someone puts on Jet Nation, I see it. But he apparently was telling a story the other day claiming that while Mangini was here, he got to be fairly close with Mangini, and they talked a lot after Mangini left. And Mangini's feeling was that Woody fired him because he wasn't quite as respectful toward Woody. Like, Woody thought he deserved more respect from Mangini than Mangini gave him. I don't see Vrabel being a guy who's going to let me make sure I don't offend Mr. Johnson today.
He's not gonna like check his ego at the door for Woody.
That's what I mean. And I'm not here to imply that Woody needs someone to like bow to him when they walk into the office.
No, but I can see that being an issue.
I don't think he's gonna hire someone who's like, I'm busy right now, Woody. Like, come back and talk to me later. you know, and
I can
think
see that. And like at the same time, that's exactly what this team needs is like an injection of kick assery. And like, I'm going to put my foot so far up your ass if you jump off sides one time, like one false start and you're off the field. Like, I don't like something like that. And I feel like he's that kind of like coach where he will, you know, a disciplinarian, I guess.
yeah, and as Wild Wave says in the chat, and that was the rap on Vrabel when he left, is that a lot of people were not.
And that's why I've been saying, no, he's not going to come here. Woody would never do that. But I'm like talking myself into it. And I'm like, wait, this might be exactly what they actually need. But would they do it? We don't know.
Yeah. And we know we fired Keith Carter, so that's got to count for something.
And that's how we end the show tonight, gentlemen.
Sounds good to me. We're just at the 1 hour mark. Didn't even realize it. Having such a good time. Thanks for joining us. Back next week to talk about whatever the Colts do to the Jets. Anthony Richardson can run for 300-400 yards. And then we get the bye week. We get a week off from this misery, and then we carry on from there. Have a good one, Jets fans.